People can't get enough of the Stouting Off podcast. Tune in each week as Drew Stoutenberg and his producer, Jordan McMillian, spout off commentary on the everyday. The Stouting Off podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. E2I Design is a full solutions provider for all things audio, video, lighting, and broadcast. Whether it be design, installation, or simply offering gear for a great price, E2I Design supports you by providing the right tools for the job. Look them up on Facebook or Instagram at E2I Design or visit their website, e2idesign.com. This is episode 122 of the Motor City HDJ podcast, and I'm so excited for you to listen to this one today. I had a chance to talk to my friend Kara Zummer of Kara Zummer Baking. You can find her on Facebook, of course, but she was a sales manager before she got back into her passion of baking. And so she came into my life at the right time and connected me with one of the most wonderful venues in the world, which you're definitely going to hear about here during the episode. But I just had to get her on the podcast, and so here we are. I get to talk to her today, so that is coming up. Don't forget, today's episode sponsored by E2I Design. Find them at e2idesign.com or on social media, Facebook, Instagram at E2I Design. Kara Zummer Baking, the podcast starts right now. I'm so excited. Thank you, first and foremost. I know we've been working on this forever because I procrastinate since forever ago.
Same.
I'm going to send you questions. Then I never send them, and it's just life happened. But here we are, and so let's maximize our time, of course. And you are, by the way, my very first guest of 2021, so I appreciate you for that.
I'm so honored. Thank you.
Yes. Well, I wouldn't have it any other way because, and we'll get into the story here in just a minute about how we came into each other's lives, really. But first and foremost, because we are 10 months in-ish, almost a year into this. How has life been for you and your family with quarantine, with COVID? Did you get enough toilet paper, things like that? How's COVID treating you guys?
Well, COVID came at a really weird time for us because I was about 4-ish months into being a stay-at-home mom, so not a lot changed for me.
Yeah.
Like, I just didn't leave the house, like, at all, instead of, like, once a week to go grocery shopping. The only big difference for us that was a struggle at the beginning when everybody was in, like, full lockdown was not getting to see our family, so they didn't get to see my 4-month-old daughter, which was a little bit of a struggle, which I was probably, like, the quickest to break the quarantine because I was like, I need some other people in my day-to-day life. I can't just sit in my house by myself for another 3 months.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess for us, like, my husband and I really like to use his days off of work to get out of the house, do something different, go on an adventure. We have a dog, and we're really into, like, using him as an excuse to get us out and active. And this time of the year, when there's, like, nowhere to go already in the winter and then having everything shut down, it's a bit of a struggle. But that's the biggest thing that's affected us lately is just, like, I guess we're gonna eat dinner in the car with a toddler and a dog. That'll be really fun.
Yeah, I know, especially, and you mentioned something that I know Rosanna and I have talked about before, which is she goes crazy, especially right at the beginning of all this when I would still do events. I had some events in Traverse City when Traverse City was in phase 6 and all of us down here were in phase 3 or whatever. Yeah. Anywho, we're going to keep it lighthearted. But she was going crazy because it was just her and Brianna, right? So she's like, I need another human. I need, like, adult, I think that was the biggest thing for us too. So clearly 2020 was a cluster. With the rest of 2020 though, so quarantine and COVID, it sounds like you guys, really made the best of it, and
we did, and, like, we had, I have some close friends that were kind of in our pod, if you will, that were really good about, like, I have such wonderful friends. They all come to my house, so I don't have to, like, look like a human and get dressed and stuff.
You have your daytime pajamas and your nighttime pajamas. These are my work pajamas. These are my bedtime pajamas. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So, they all were really good about coming over and they all want to see Sophia. So that's been really great that I do have some people that we see pretty regularly. And now, one of my friends who used to be one of the ones that was over here like on a weekly basis has a
Right.
son now. So now we kind of switch back and forth, which is great because she gets us out of the house, which is super necessary.
So I'm most excited to have you on with me because we met each other in a way that happens regularly for me,
Yeah.
but it turned into something much more fruitful. And I will say that because of you and our good friend in crime, Lindsay Dardis,
Lindsay.
that I was able to find the Frankenmuth Brewery. Now, full disclosure, I had known of the brewery, never played the venue until, and I
Yeah.
can't remember specifically. If you remember, great, fill me in. I had
I
a
don't
couple. They booked their
know.
event at the Frankenmuth Brewery. I think it was just randomly that I was booked there, and because of the way the event went, I ended up coming back to do several things,
Yeah.
and you referred me, but I and of course I'm humbled and appreciative of that. And Lindsay sent me a couple for this year that I wasn't able to play. One I am because, and we'll get into the calendars and bookings and all that. But
Yeah.
yay, yay, yay. So how did you end up
Tell
to
me about it.
Frankenmuth Brewery? Tell me that story.
Oh my gosh, it's a weird story. So, very long story short, I went to MSU. I
Go
moved to
green.
Wisconsin with, yeah, go white.
There we go. Okay.
Um, I I didn't go there as a freshman, so it's not like that's instinct for me. And people say it, and I'm like, go white. That's a thing you're supposed to say.
Don't you know the
I don't.
creed? Oh,
I don't
yeah,
know the
yeah,
fight
yeah,
song.
yeah.
It's like blasphemous, but I just don't. Yeah. So I after graduation, my now husband and I we've been together for 13, almost
Awesome.
14 years now. So we went all through college together. We moved to Wisconsin for 4 years after we graduated. Got married over there, and
Cool.
then we moved back home to be closer to family. And when we moved back to Saginaw, neither of us had jobs.
Mm,
We just moved back kind of blindly. We knew a place that we could
yeah.
rent, and then I got a job in a bakery, and it just didn't really work out
Mhm.
long term. And then I was kind of like, well, now what? I've been trying
Sure.
to kind of get my baking career moving for a while now because I managed a kitchen in Wisconsin, and I wanted to get back to more cake decorating and that kind of
Okay.
stuff. And so I took a few months off of work, which I had never done before, just to
Right.
sort of reassess, like, what am I doing with myself? Like, is because Saginaw has some really great bakeries, and so do the surrounding areas, but
Sure.
there's only a few, and that's it.
Yeah.
And they're pretty small. They only have like 10 to 15 employees at the most, and so there's not a lot of space to get a job and things like that. And
Got it.
so I actually applied to the brewery as a they were looking for an office assistant because I was like, well, I've been in food service for like 14 years now. Let's take a break and try something different, and I'll be
Yeah.
a secretary or a receptionist or an office administrator or
Right.
something. I'm nice to people and I can answer phone calls and emails and stuff. And I interviewed, and the woman that hired me was like, well, I think you'd actually be a better fit as something else more restaurant related with all your background. And I was like, okay, fine. So I got hired in as a host at 27, which was weird because I was working with a lot of like 17-year-olds.
Bless your heart.
And
Yeah.
then yeah, it was weird. I was not the mom. I was more of like this weird, nobody knew how old I was either. They all thought I was like a
Good.
completely different
Well,
age.
that's a
So
good
it was
mystery.
weird.
That's a good mystery
It
to
was a
keep.
nice
Yeah.
compliment. They
Yeah.
were all like, "You're 27." I was
Right.
like,
Right.
"Yeah, you're all children." And so then I got moved up into management pretty quickly. I managed in the restaurant for just like a month or two, and
Sure.
then management spot and banquets opened up. And I had worked in banquets as a server in college. I have a degree in hospitality business food service management, so it's an appropriate
Spirit
job for
animal.
me.
Yes.
It's like the first time I'd ever used my degree
Yeah.
for what it was for.
Awesome.
I was like, well, it'd be kind of stupid of me to turn down the
Right.
opportunity to like make my student loans
Right.
worth the money.
Yeah.
So I took that job, and they had stopped doing banquets for a while and were basically trying to get them back on track. So
Absolutely.
I kind of helped them build sort of the structure in banquets, how we book, what the rules are, all that kind of stuff, and getting banquets moving. And then they hired Lindsay in about 6 months later, and Lindsay is unbelievably good
Yeah.
at food service and banquets. Like
Yeah.
it was a miracle. Like she like as soon as she got hired in, she was asking me all these questions about how we book things and how, how we run events, and I was like, I don't know.
Right.
We're just doing it. And she really helped get us organized and get us streamlined even more than I had been trying to do. So she was definitely
Right.
just such a blessing to,
I
and we became best friends
for
pretty much
sure.
immediately.
I remember telling you this. I for sure remember thinking, even as of course, names have been changed or even removed to protect the innocent. I remember the moment that I said, this place is a well oiled machine. Because normally when I go to a venue, there are places I've played. Well, let's just get real. There are places I prefer playing over others. Clearly, I don't mind
Right.
the drive. I mean, it's an hour, I think an hour a minute from here in Brighton to Frankenmuth from my house, straight shot to up 23, 75. We're good to go. But I I have venues I prefer playing because of that fact that the
Yeah.
team knows what they're doing. And I think we established that pretty quickly. Unfortunately, it was only like 4, maybe 5 events in the time that you were still there that I was able to play. But I just, man, oh man, I'm so thankful for that. Obviously, it brought us to this point.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, and we kind of felt the same way about you. Like
please
we
stop,
we
but
run
keep
the
going.
show,
Oh,
but seriously, it's the same. Like
hmm,
we've had some DJs where we're like, just because you have
yeah,
speakers
yeah,
and can play music on them
doesn't make you
doesn't
the
mean
guy.
that you
Right,
should be doing
right,
this job.
right.
But we run the show as the managers, but the DJ really runs the show because if you
Yeah,
guys aren't organized,
yeah,
we can't rely on you. We're having to chase people around.
right.
We're having to like interrogate you for all of these, like, when are we doing this, who's announcing what, how are we,
Yeah.
like, so having an organized DJ and somebody who is also like makes it more fun. Like you can really tell when somebody
Oh,
is good at that job and is meant to do that job rather than just somebody who's playing music. Like it makes such a big difference.
yeah.
So we kind of like, I remember the first time I worked with you, I was like, when's he coming
Yeah.
back? Because this is the first time we've had a DJ who like knows what
Let
he's
me
doing.
let me get my wife. Let me bring her in here and have you tell her all this wonderful stuff. I appreciate that. I do know that I felt that there was that mutual feeling of professionalism, like, man, when you find something good,
Yeah.
so I did
Yeah, for
feel that,
sure.
and I appreciate that, and obviously that brought us here. And it's unfortunate, as much as I am so thrilled that Lindsay continues to send me business. Again, I've struck out on a
Hey, me
couple.
too.
Yeah, absolutely. See, there you go, you take it with you.
Exactly.
So unfortunately, I've struck out on a few because my calendar got shuffled around, and so 2021 is just this giant puzzle of trying to,
It's so crazy.
you know what I mean, to try and fit people in from last year into this year.
Yeah.
So moving with that, so you're not there anymore, which is a bummer. But the reason we get to talk today, which is your
Right.
opportunity, and you really, I think you clearly teed the whole thing up because you're talking about uh,
Sure
all
did.
of these questions. Yes, all of these questions I was going to ask, which of course, I gave you ahead of time. Um, really, so I mean, you had a good thing going there. But what lit that fire? What brought that passion back to say, "Hey, I want to go back into baking"? How did you get back into it?
So it was sort of an underlying plan that I've had since I knew I was moving back home, because when you're trying to start a business, it really helps if you know people in the area that can
Ding, 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 ding.
recommend you,
Yep.
can get you business, can,
Hmm.
connect you. And like I had always kind of planned on starting my baking business from home and then growing it into the point where I have to rent a place because you can't, it's just so scary to start a business with all of those costs. And I knew that
Yeah.
I wasn't going to be able to just do that right off the bat. And I didn't really want to either. I wanted to get to the point where I'm so busy I need a bigger space rather
Yeah.
than getting a big space and
Sure.
then not being able
Right.
to handle it.
Sitting with
So,
empty coolers and empty counter space, going, "Well, here we are."
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it helps too. Every single job I've had, whether it's been in a bakery or not, has taught me so much about what to do properly or what I don't want to do in a business, as far as like one of the big things that I have changed my mind on as far as being a bakery owner is that when I do have a commercial bakery, I don't want a storefront. I don't want to hire a ton of
I
people.
don't blame you.
When you start
I don't
running a
blame you at
business,
all.
you stop doing the fun
Yep.
stuff. Like I've
Yep.
worked for more than one bakery
Yep.
where the person who started the bakery loves decorating cakes and they don't ever touch a cake anymore. Like
Yeah.
that's my passion. So I don't want to start running a bakery and then never get to touch a cake or a cookie again. Like that's defeats the whole purpose of me doing this.
Yeah. So
And
your
like when
passion then
you're the
is
business owner, you don't do the fun stuff. You
right.
do all the hard stuff.
Right. And so your passion is the actual, I mean, it sounds like, so you're obviously passionate about all of it, but am I hearing you say that you're more passionate about one part of it than, I mean, do you prefer decorating over the
Yeah.
baking process, or,
Yeah.
you're good, doing
Yeah.
that whole thing?
I like baking and
Yeah.
it helps a lot. The job that I had in Milwaukee before we moved back to Michigan was in a bakery, but it was a coffee shop bakery, so it wasn't a cake and cookies bakery. It was
Mm-hmm.
croissants and muffins and that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and that definitely fueled my passion and appreciation for baking and recipe development,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that I hadn't really gotten exposed to because my education is more restaurant based.
Right.
So it
Of
was
course.
like, I remember people being like, well, what are you doing when you graduate? And I
Right.
was like, I'm going to be a cake baker. And they were like, why? Like that
Excuse me?
makes no sense
Yeah.
with what you're doing. But it taught me how to run a business, which is what I needed. So,
Good.
but yeah, I do have a passion for baking, but I would say more of my passion is decorating. I've been decorating cakes for, I don't know, like 15 or 16 years now. I started in high school. My dad and I took Wilton cake decorating classes together at like Michael's.
That's awesome. To do it
Yeah,
with dad.
it was super fun. It was a really, really fun thing for us to do. My dad is an engineer.
Well, there, you know what? There, that makes complete sense to me that an
Yeah, it
engineer would
does.
like baking, because I think there's
Yes.
that feeling of, and I obviously stalked your Facebook page to evaluate your product.
Oh.
I would definitely understand why an engineer would feel satisfied to see the cookie, let's say, be iced in a certain way. I think that makes complete sense that he would be,
Yeah.
he would want to do that.
And both of my parents are very artistically minded.
Sure.
So yeah, he used to make us these really fancy birthday cakes and stuff. And he was kind of like, he did the same thing that I feel like a lot of people do, where you get into it the hard way and then you realize that there are ways of doing it easier if
Well,
you
yeah.
just learn some things.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. And after I graduated high school, I was kind of floundering on, like, you do that freshman thing where you think you've got your whole life figured out, and then you take a couple classes and you're like, just
Yeah,
kidding,
7
not
majors later.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm now an English
I wanted
major.
to be a French teacher.
Yeah.
Thought I was gonna be so good at it.
So for you with 2020, I mean, we saw. Let's just get real. I mean, I was supposed to play 4 times more of the events than I actually did.
Yeah, it was a struggle.
It was a struggle, but with you and what you're doing, what kind of success did you see last year, if any? I mean, you're able to just do
Yeah.
it, drop it off, let it be. But what was
Right.
that? What was last year like for you?
It was frustrating.
Yeah, of course.
The most success that I found was more in my promoted, like my holiday stuff. I did Mother's Day cookies and Father's Day cookies, where these are the things you can buy. Tell me when you want to pick them up. This is how much it's going to cost you.
Right.
I did do a few small wedding cakes, and I got more regular business from birthday cakes than anything, I would say, because people were kind of trying to make birthdays more special at home with their family when they couldn't like go out or have a party or anything. So they kind of tried to dump all of the excitement into the cake and a couple of other things that they were doing at home. But I mean, I had a full booked weekend the weekend in November that everything got canceled.
Wow.
I had like hundreds of dollars worth of orders.
Jeez.
That was going to be like my big weekend, and it got canceled like 2 days before. So yeah,
Man.
It was starting to build, and then it all just got pulled out from under our feet at the last second. So it was frustrating. I definitely did a lot of smaller stuff, and now I'm kind of like taking whatever comes to me, because people are having to reschedule their entire, they had these dreams of a beautiful big wedding, and then it got shot down at the last second, and now they're kind of like, well, I guess we'll just have 10 people then. So I'm trying to make it happen for people if that's what they need. If they need a small 6-inch cake, for $25,
Right.
then, I'll make it as special as I can for them
Right.
and try to make it work for everybody. But yeah, it was very
It
frustrating. I had
sounds
a couple of big orders that got postponed to this year, so hopefully those will happen.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel ya, and I know that feeling of the phone call that's, "Hey, we've pushed it
Yeah.
off, we've pushed it off, we've pushed it off, we've continued to push it off and
Mhm.
pushing it off," and then finally you get that call where they're like, "Well, we're gonna just," and I get it. Listen, fam, uh, this whole thing
Right.
changing so rapidly, we didn't understand it. We
Yeah.
understand it a little bit better now. Now we know people, I just yeah, I feel for everybody that's,
Right. I can't imagine having to cancel my wedding at the last second. Like especially the ones I had the weekend in November I had. I
mm,
mean, it was supposed to be like 100
geez,
people. This wasn't a 20-person wedding that was like, well, just kidding, don't come
right.
into town today. People booked hotel
Out of
rooms. Like I
towners,
can't
yeah. Yep.
imagine the devastation of canceling a wedding
Man.
like that at the last second must be so stressful for
So, I
people.
mean, you're any size. It sounds like you've got the capability to do
Pretty
anything.
much.
What's the biggest order you've
Yeah.
ever had to complete?
Oh my gosh. So personally, for me at home, there hasn't been a lot of big orders yet because this year has been terrible for
Sure.
gatherings. I worked at MSU Bakers when I was there for like a year and
There
a
you
half.
go.
And we had an order that was like, I think 800 sugar cookies, I want to
Wow.
say. I mean, I didn't do them by
Right,
myself. Like
right.
we had a
But
team, but
decorated. I
that
mean,
was crazy.
listen, we could do 800 sugar cookies in a weekend, but then to decorate and frost and do everything else, that's a
Yeah,
different story here, pal. I mean, that's what
it
you're
was
doing.
crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, and then, we also did this so, like, that was one of the really fun things about working at MSU Bakers was that they do the baked goods for all the dorms,
Oh, nice.
all of the events that are put on campus.
Wonderful.
Not weddings, like, that's a private thing, but, like, if they would do anniversary parties and stuff like that, we did all the baked goods for them, and we did this one. I can't even remember exactly what the celebration was for, but they wanted, like, a 7-foot tall cake.
Okay.
And so the whole cake was styrofoam, so it wasn't a real cake, but it
Sure.
looked like a real cake, and I had to ice a styrofoam round that looked like a cake layer that was, I think, 4 feet across. It was insane. I have a picture of me
Jeez.
next to it on a table, and it's, like, towering 3 feet over my head. It's
That's
crazy.
awesome.
That was super fun because it was just, like, this crazy challenge of, like, when have you ever had to ice a cake that big before? How do you even do it? Like, it was crazy. It was super fun,
That's
though.
awesome. I can't imagine. I mean, I've been in situations where you go, this is so fun. I just how do I make this happen without going crazy? So
Right?
to have a 4 foot
Yeah.
styrofoam cake, I think, yeah, I would add that to the list of things I've seen in my
It was
lifetime.
pretty
That'd be fun.
awesome.
So, what's your favorite thing to bake? Of everything you make, what is your favorite thing?
Um, my favorite thing to bake is probably biscuits. I know that's a weird answer for a cake
Go
decorator, but I
on.
love making buttermilk biscuits.
Yes.
Like they're just and same so anything that needs cold butter is like really satisfying to me.
Sure.
So biscuits or pie dough
Yeah.
or like certain short crust type of things because it's that satisfaction of doing it the right way
Yeah.
because it's not hard to do, but if you haven't had a lot of experience with it, it's easy to do it wrong. Like less is more with mixing. So like it's supposed to kind of look terrible, and that's how you did it, right?
Yeah.
Like I used to hate making pie dough, and then I learned how to make it properly, and now I just love it because it's so satisfying that I know how to do it right. Like it's just like,
That is
I did
one
it.
thing we have talked about. We were doing a lot of quiches.
Oh
Just
yeah.
one of those like we have all these pie crusts that we bought with anticipation of having all these people over for the holidays. They didn't come over, so now how do we use all this
Yeah.
pie crust? We make quiches. So I've had a lot of spinach, egg, and bacon
Quiche.
quiche in my life.
Yummy.
Yeah. I will say too, because well, clearly I enjoy eating. Hopefully you've noticed that by the I who did I see? It was Alton Brown. I like him a lot. He
Oh, I love Alton Brown. I
Alton
used
Brown's
to watch
show.
his show on Food Network, like, obsessively
He
because it's, like, science-based.
Yes. So, and I
Love that.
think we're on the same page with that. We've established that through conversation. I think we understand we're both
Yeah.
nerds in that way. He
Yeah.
did an episode of Good Eats with it was about biscuits, specifically about biscuits, and then reusing the biscuit dough. But then he revisited because he changed. He completely said, "No, no, no! Don't listen to me. How I did it the first
Yeah.
time." But I was intrigued by that because you're absolutely right. Like I'm not a. I remember my grandfather used to drink buttermilk straight up. Would drink buttermilk.
Ooh,
Lived to 80
my.
years old, so I mean, buttermilk and bacon.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Ooh, mhm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, man. Oh, but so biscuits. I'm a fan. I can do the biscuits. Okay.
They're so good, and, like, they're really good as so I've made biscuits and gravy for dinner on many
Oh yeah, the
occasions. It's,
breakfast
like, a
for dinner
really
gig is my
easy, like,
favorite. Yeah,
satisfying
yeah,
dinner.
100%.
Yeah. My husband refuses to eat breakfast for
Okay,
dinner. That's,
listen,
like, the
pal.
only exception. It's really upsetting for me because I love
I can do it
breakfast
any
food,
time of day.
and
Yep, any time of day.
it's easy to make, so it's like, "What are we gonna have for dinner?" I'll just make
Throw
some
some
eggs, like,
eggs
it's
on.
easy, but no, he refuses. I tricked him into eating a quiche one time for dinner that was like I just didn't tell him that that's what I was
Here,
making
have
for
some
dinner, and then he had
pie.
to be fine with it,
Yeah,
so
it's got
yeah.
spinach in it, and it's
It's
fine. But
egg
here,
pie, it's an egg tart. Yeah,
got to trick him into
but,
eating
like,
it.
leftover biscuits with, like, jam.
Yeah, yeah. I'm all
Mm,
about it.
I love
Little
them,
butter.
but yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
so good. I just
big
made,
deal.
an apple pie for Thanksgiving that I mean, we had Thanksgiving with, like, 3 people,
Awesome.
but, I struggle with fruit pies a little bit because the liquid and they can
Consistency
be
is
really
weird.
finicky,
Yeah,
and it just don't usually turn out for me
sure.
because I feel like people just pretend like if you do it the easiest way that it'll just be this beautiful perfect pie,
Right.
and it never turns out that way, and it does that thing where when you cut it open all the liquid just
Not a fan.
flows out
Nope.
of it and you're
You
like,
lost me.
well,
Yeah,
I'm
you
a
lost me
failure.
right there. I'm
Yeah,
some. Mm-mm.
but I followed a recipe, and Deb Perlman, who is the woman behind Smitten Kitchen, is a lot like Alton Brown, where she is like a perfectionist and is like, this is the way to make this thing. And she does a lot of testing, and then she does a lot of revisiting too. And she updated her apple pie recently, and I made it, and it was the most perfect apple pie I have ever made. I couldn't stop talking about it. I'm so obsessed. I was so proud. I was like taking lots of pictures of it and like, look at this pie. I did
I
it. I
I
did
have
it.
to be candid in telling you that I think for me it doesn't get better than a good pecan pie.
I do
I
love
I
that.
like a pecan pie because of there's something about the filling. If it's done right, if it's
Hmm.
just gelatinous, just enough,
Yeah.
it's really, really, really good. I love that so much.
Yeah.
How do you feel about and the Alton Brown thing of in your kitchen when you bake? How do you feel about this idea that your utensils can serve more than one purpose?
Oh, for
Yeah,
sure. Like, I hate when I see those, like, it's addicting to look at and to like imagine
sure.
buying all those fancy
Oh,
kitchen
absolutely.
gadgets. And then you get it home and you're like, well, I can only use this for one thing, which I don't make all the time. So now it's just taking up real estate in my kitchen and I only use it for this one thing. So I don't want to not have it, but
Right.
it's not worth taking up the
Right.
space. Like, I can't stand
Right.
that. So yeah, I'm all about
You multitask with your tools
anything.
and utensils in the kitchen. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for
Cool.
sure. And like I think any good cook or baker can attest, like, you're very particular about spatulas.
I'm a spatula guy. I made eggs this morning.
Yeah.
If this quarantine has taught me anything, it is that you can pretty much learn anything on YouTube. Gordon
Right?
Ramsay's Majamsies, and I have learned, and even had to tease my mom about this morning, that I have learned how to make the perfect scrambled egg. I believe, based on Gordon
I'm
Ramsay's
really
method.
jealous.
You don't need milk.
I suck at
You don't
scrambled
need milk, you
eggs.
don't need water. All you need is a pan. You put your eggs in the pan with your butter. You don't scramble them until they're in and at a saucepan, so it's not an actual fry pan.
Uh-huh.
You put your eggs into the
Oh.
saucepan with the butter, and it's 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. You're constantly scrambling. So that way the proteins break down in the pan.
Oh.
By the time you get to your finished product, you're pretty much pulling it off the heat, letting it sit because you want the bottom of the pan to cook your eggs instead of the heat, right? So you don't,
Yeah.
and yes, toward the end, you have to kind of get and scrape a little bit, but I need better spatulas to do that. Mine are okay,
Yeah.
but yeah,
It makes a
it
big
is a huge
difference.
difference.
Like, my dad and I have this thing. He has this spatula that they've had since I don't even. They probably had it for
It's
like
an
30 years now. I
heirloom
don't even know how long they've
spatula.
had it for. But it's like a thin, bendy
Yep.
plastic one. It's not
Yep.
silicone because silicone is like a
That's
recent
right.
thing with spatulas, and we covet them. I found
Yeah.
one in a store in Wisconsin, and I bought it for him, and I was like, "I found the spatula!" Like, it's a big deal, and, like, I haven't found another one since, and I'm really mad that I didn't buy more of them, like, for me to keep because I would like one. Because those silicone spatulas are really
Yeah.
thick and fat
That's
in
the
the
one
middle, and
that
I don't like
that's the
that,
one that
and
I
yeah,
have an older
they're
OXO
terrible.
one that's blue, right? And actually, I think I'm going to
Yeah.
entitle this episode of the podcast, "I Found the Spatula." I think we found our hook for the name of the episode.
That's really the like, when I gave it to him, it was like I gave him, like, the most special gift that he's
The
ever been
holy
given, like,
grail
we
of
were all so
spatulas.
excited about
Yeah.
it.
It's
Yeah.
important to you, of course, with what you're doing. I mean, your biggest challenge, other than not having much to cook for events, as far as baking for
Yeah.
cakes and stuff. I mean, your biggest challenge right now is probably just keeping busy. But other than
Yes.
keeping busy, because we know that's probably your biggest challenge. I mean, have you had any big surprises in the last few months? Is there anything you can think of that just out of the blue surprised you, and you were like, oh, okay, I could do that, or that's cool?
Um, not so far. I mean, I guess for me, like right now, what I'm looking forward to is it's so far away. I have a huge order in September for a wedding that they want a ton of decorated cookies for favors. But I would say in the last few months, it's been pretty chill around
Yeah,
here. We haven't had too much going on. I've been testing for Valentine's Day stuff right
yeah.
now, and I was surprised at how much I forgot how to make macarons properly. They're so
And I also
frustrating.
learned, so you'll
I
hope.
made like 4 batches in a
Yeah,
row that were all terrible.
those you cannot, my professional opinion, you cannot screw up a Macron for me. By the way, I did learn there are not everything is called a macaroon, because there are
I had to have
macarons
that conversation
and
with my
there are
husband
macaroons.
yesterday.
I learned that recently. I was
Yeah.
40 years old when I learned that. I'm still 40 years old, so good that we got that out of the way. But macarons, specifically with the thinner, oh, come on. What do you use for the cookie?
They're almond flour
Thank you, almond
based.
flour.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Macaroons are usually coconut,
correct,
which is a whole different,
which
yeah, creature.
is the bag that I get at
I love
Aldi.
those too.
Yes, I kill that little bag that I get at Aldi and go, oh, why am I diabetic all of a sudden? I don't understand.
It's hard to say.
Yeah. So yeah, you cannot screw up a Macron for me. You give me one of those, I don't care how it looks, it's gonna be good as long as it's got
Yeah.
all, you know.
That's how my husband is. He's kind of like, "Well, they look fine." I'm
Yeah.
like, "No, no, no,
Is
no,
it
they don't. They don't
sweet?
look
Yeah.
fine.
You're
They're a
driving
failure."
yourself
Yeah,
crazy.
no.
I know it, absolutely.
I am. It's hard. Well, and like I'm trying to make red ones, so you're
Sure.
adding all that extra gel coloring, which
Yeah.
is like messing with the
Yep.
consistency, and
So not food
it's like a
coloring?
dialing in
You
thing.
don't use food,
Yeah.
like liquid food coloring, or use gel food coloring?
No, I don't know why liquid food coloring exists. I really,
It's
ever since I
horrible.
started
It's a
decorating
dye,
cakes, I'm like,
basically.
what is this for?
Yeah.
Well, it's liquidy though, so it
Right.
adds liquid. So yeah, any professional baker is using gel food coloring.
Yeah.
Sometimes actually, I know one of the bakeries I worked for was testing out a powdered coloring for macarons because that wouldn't mess with your texture as much as a
Right.
gel because it's not adding the liquid. Which gel coloring isn't, as liquidy as the stuff that you can buy in the grocery store,
Sure.
but it's still, it is changing the liquid consistency a little bit. But yeah, it's a gel. And it doesn't water down your frosting. It doesn't water down, and you can't use certain colorings for certain things. Like you would not use gel coloring in chocolate. You have to use oil-based colors
Ah, see, this is
because
that
you can't add
science.
water.
This is
Yep.
why I
Yep.
appreciate you. I appreciate you. Because there is a science to it. I mean, obviously, just like any recipe, there's certain reasons that you have to do. If you're going to reduce, for instance, you have to do it in a certain order. It has to be done a certain way with a certain temperature and
Yeah.
certain elements at certain times. There is a science to it, and I appreciate that that you approach it that way. I know that it's hard to grow right now. We know that growth is kind of tough, and I know that
Yeah.
for everybody, it's about man, I wish I just had an extra like 10 grand laying around, with the business. It's
Man.
I would love to just go on a shopping spree, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
well, so okay, so if you had right now, if I handed you a check for 10,000 bucks, what would Kara Zoomer Baking use that for? What would you do with an extra 10 grand if you had it laying around? How would you spend it?
I would build. a commercial bakery like on my property
Yeah.
next to my house so
Yeah.
that when I like so I could just have a commercial business like I don't have to leave my house, right? That
Hmm.
would be the ideal. Although I don't know if 10 grand would be enough because I would have to buy, an oven, mixers, all that kind of stuff. Um I would say like smaller term or shorter term,
Hmm.
I would definitely invest in a sheeter for dough, so I wasn't
Okay.
having to roll dough with a rolling pin
That sounds exciting.
because that would save a lot of time. I worked in bakeries that had a sheeter and I miss them so much.
Oh,
And then I could also do some other stuff like pie dough would be easier with a
yeah.
sheeter. I could even consider doing laminated doughs like danishes or croissants, which I'm
Yeah.
not necessarily planning on wanting to do those anyway, but it'd be more fun to play with basically. A dehydrator would be amazing. I know a lot of professional cookie decorators use dehydrators to help their frosting dry evenly.
Sure.
That would also be useful for macarons because you would not have to worry about humidity. Because
Hmm.
that's a big like I stopped making macarons all summer because it was just too humid and they just weren't going to turn out, so I didn't even try.
Yeah.
And probably a 3D printer so I could make my own cookie cutters.
That's awesome. A 3D
It's a
printer
big
for cookie
thing.
cutters.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
if you look online for cookie cutters now, if you see a lot of like smaller businesses, if you're looking, outside of like Amazon and stuff like that,
Right.
it's a big business. And I'm obsessed. There are a couple of websites I use regularly where they give me the dimensions so I know exactly what size it's going to be.
Right.
And I just would love to be able to do that
No
myself.
surprises when you're trying to make your Star Wars cookies and Yoda's head ends up being 5 feet instead of just, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I actually just ran into this problem because the website that I normally use that is very detailed about the sizes of cutters didn't have exactly the shape that I was looking for, so
Uh-oh.
I bought it from a different website and they didn't give me the height and I got them and they're too big. So I can't use them for what I wanted and now
No,
I
I
have to
guess we'll
go
just
find
have
other
to
ones
eat
and
them. Oh.
yeah.
You are very, I appreciate you, friend, because you are very, you have taken this and you have really invested not only your time and energy, but also into learning. I feel like we constantly
Yeah,
have to be learning. That's kind of
for
what we
sure.
talked about earlier, that the experience that you and Lindsay had when we first met. I am always still learning about what I do. So I had to learn
Yeah,
how Frankenmuth Brewery did things and does things. I had to learn
right.
my relationships with other vendors that I've worked with, but you're constantly learning. How do you, I feel like baking and cooking, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like baking and like karate haven't really changed much over time. I feel like the process of baking, uh, and again, I could be completely off on this, but I feel like
Yeah,
the
I
way
don't
we
know if
do
I agree
things,
with you.
right, right. And that's my point, is that I don't think the way we make things has really changed. I mean, 350 degrees, we know it does this for this. Correct me. Tell me I'm wrong. You're learning every
Yeah.
day. Tell me about new processes you're learning about.
So I feel like it's kind of what you were talking about before with Alton Brown and like a few of the different bakers that I follow pretty
Yeah.
closely, they sometimes will come back like a year or two or even more later and be like, that was stupid. This is how you do it right.
Right.
Like I think people are always trying to make it simpler, make it more accessible for people, make it not so intimidating. And I think that's like this whole culture with like the sourdough this year was a big eye opener for
Everybody
a
was
lot of
baking bread,
people.
by the way. Everybody was baking
Yeah.
bread. Everybody.
I refuse to get a sourdough starter
Okay,
going
thank
because
you.
I already have a child to take care of.
You don't need a
I don't
sourdough
need to be
starter
feeding a sourdough
all over the
starter.
floor. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not. I'm
Okay.
not doing it.
Okay.
My sister was like, "It's so easy. You only have to feed it like 3 times a day at the beginning." And I was like,
Yeah.
that's not
It's like you're
easy."
talking about
Okay.
sourdough like it's a Tamagotchi or something.
Right. It is. It's a living creature.
Ah,
But honestly, like I've always been a TV watcher. I've been obsessed with watching cooking shows since I was in high school, so
awesome.
that never stopped. British Baking Show, the Great British Baking Show
Yeah.
is my favorite show of all time. I love it
Okay.
so much. And so for me, it's not necessarily about learning new techniques and new ways of baking things. It's more of new flavor combinations and kind of thinking
Okay.
outside of the box of
That
like
makes
like
sense.
I had to do that for when I was trying to figure out what I'm making for Valentine's products this year. Everybody's going to do chocolate covered strawberries. Everybody.
Of course.
Everybody's going to do white chocolate and raspberry.
Yeah.
Like, what else can I make that is more interesting than that, that is outside of the box, that's still accessible, but that's not like the same thing that you're going to see in every bakery and every candy box? You know, what other flavors can we be playing around with? And I've gotten a lot of really interesting ideas from the Great British Baking Show. I remember like writing down and saving like ideas from stuff that they've made on there, because I'm like, that sounds delicious, and I never would have thought of it on my own. Like,
Yeah.
that's one of the big things for me that I've felt for such a long time, especially after running a kitchen. Like, I don't have all the good ideas. I That's a lot of pressure to be the only person who can come up with ideas for things. Like, I don't want to be the only person responsible for good ideas. So I really enjoy exploring other people's ideas and watching what other people are doing and how they're experimenting with things, and that's like a really fun process for me to just kind of see other people's creative process.
No, that's what I was asking. I appreciate you for being so genuine with that, because yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm most impressed, especially at a venue. I love seeing what people come up with.
Yeah.
Yes, sure, we are going to see the same thing. We're going to see the same treats pretty much all the time. Folks that maybe hire an entry level baker might, you might have the chocolate covered pretzels rods or what have you, and
Right.
yeah, I think that's awesome though. I love seeing what people come up with, and yeah, I'm glad that you're that kind of person that's trying to be in using ingenuity to
Yeah.
come up with something new.
Well, and that's for me, that's more of what I am constantly trying to learn
Right.
is like, I follow a lot of cookie decorators on Instagram,
Hmm.
because I mean, that it's just incredible what
Me
people come up
too,
with.
but
And
for completely different
yeah,
reasons. Anyway.
right. But there's this one baker in Canada, Megan Warren. She is the owner of Downtown Dough in Toronto. I can't fathom how her brain works. Like, the stuff she makes is so beautiful and it's so perfect. And like, I strive for that. I strive to be as talented as she is, but also it's not just the decorating itself, it's the composition of the way that she
Right.
decorates things is just incredible to me. The way that she uses fonts and the color combinations and the design work that she does, like, I'm sure she has some sort of like technical background in, like, I don't know, architecture or design or something that is just like beyond my comprehension.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure. Well, it goes back to what we were talking about with Dad being an engineer. I mean, if you I mean, there's a certain level of, even what, like with what I do. uh yes, there is this musical, I grew up with a musical inclination. I do have a knowledge and savvy of technology. Yes, the personality precedes me a little bit. You put those things together. Yeah, you put those things together, and of course, you're able to take different abilities you have and then dump them into one thing that you're passionate about. What is, as I mean, because we all start from the ground and work our way up. What's one thing that you know now that you wish you knew then when you started doing this?
For me, I think it's just to stop taking everything so seriously.
Yeah,
Like, I ran a bakery in Wisconsin. It was a bakery for a coffee roasting company, right? So
that's awesome.
it was a big responsibility. We had 10 cafes that we were baking for at the time. I had
Wow.
a team of like 8 to 10 to 12 people.
Sure.
But I remember even then, like, I was working like 65 hours a week on a regular basis, and it was exhausting. And when we finally kind of got things under control, because I was learning that job as it was happening, like, I wasn't prepared for the position at the time, and they were really patient with me. But I remember on one of my days off, somebody calling me in a panic about something, and I just remember being like, "This is not life and death. It's muffins, guys. Come on. Like, let's all just calm down a little bit. You're allowed to be like super invested in your job, and I am, but like, no one's gonna die
Right.
if we make a mistake here. Okay,
Yeah.
like, let's all just
You're not
take
buying
a
a
step back,
house. You're
take
not
things a
buying
little
a
less
car.
seriously."
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh boy.
And so that's kind of the attitude that I have with it now, where, I'm solely responsible for everything that I produce. Nobody's telling me what to do. I'm not answering to anybody but myself. If people don't like it, they won't buy it. And that, so I have to be a little more calm about it. I can't, if I'm putting too much pressure on myself, it also, I'm never going to be creative if I have that kind of weight sitting on top
Right.
of me. So
Right.
that's kind of like, we're like, let's make it fun. Let's make it, this isn't supposed to be hard. This is supposed to be a fun thing. Like, it's going to be hard work because it's hard work, but it doesn't have to be mentally exhausting as well as
Isn't that
our jobs
wonderful to
do.
be in control of your own business and
I
not
will
have to
never work
answer
for
to
anyone
anybody?
ever again if I can help it.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, that was my main goal with
Yeah.
wanting to do a bakery at home too, is like, I've worked for a lot of people. I've worked for a lot of different companies. I've seen how people do things. I know my preferences, and I have never found somebody that I'm like, yeah, I can work for you for 30 years. Like, I'm the only person I can work for
Yeah.
that long.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked about this too. Like, I don't trust anybody else as far as me.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, I don't trust anybody in the respect that I wouldn't have trusted anybody for the first time playing a venue, for instance, like Frankenmuth Brewery. I wouldn't have trusted to send someone else while I'm trying to establish a relationship for the first time.
right.
Send someone else. What happens if they screw it up? So I don't blame you for just
Yeah,
wanting to do it on your own. I've done it that way for years. It's the reason that I'm a solo act and that I will always be a solo act.
right,
And because you control the quality of your product, you're able to, if you mess something up, you know it. And
right.
you're able to say, well, this is on me. And you don't have to worry about, firing anybody. Really, let's get down to it. That's what it's
Yeah,
about.
let me tell you, I've fired people. It is the worst. It's
I'm
the worst. I
aware.
literally,
I'm
like,
aware.
when I had to fire people, I would be like sick for the whole day.
Yeah.
I would have to like hide my hand under the table
Yeah.
because people would
Just,
see them shaking if yeah, it was bad.
Are you
It was
okay?
bad. Well, and like, I feel like you probably feel this way. I didn't
Absolutely.
get into this to be an employer.
That's right.
I got
100%.
into this to do the fun thing that I like
100%.
to do,
That's right.
not to hire other people and watch them have all the
I
fun.
don't, well, I'll tell you. For me, it's a little different. I wouldn't mind having a kid maybe who wants to earn a couple extra bucks. Send them ahead of me. Let
Yeah,
them do all the
carry all the
grunt
heavy
work.
stuff.
I do the
Yeah,
6 hours of real work
yeah.
and then leave like a rock star. You know what I mean? So, but
Yeah.
but
I
there's a
mean, that sounds pretty
but
great.
there's a joy to that. For me though, I mean, listen, yes, I love the brewery. We talk about it because, of course, that's how we were brought to this spot. Uh,
Right.
I realized very quickly it was much more practical to use the back entrance up and down the stairs.
Oh
I
boy, the
realized
stairs.
that because going through the restaurant, down the elevator, all of that jazz, it was more inconvenient to wait for an elevator than it was just
Mhm.
to get the work done. Part of it for me is that exhaustion, feeling that
Yeah.
exhaustion and going, okay, the gear's in, the car is parked because I was able to get a spot, actually park in the parking lot and get a spot. My
Because you
gears,
got there at 9 a.m.
well, or I was just a jerk about it and sat there and did the old
Well, yeah, that's
flutity
usually how you
flu,
get spots there.
but my gear's in. Now I can set up. It looks exactly like it's supposed to. And then I'm able to work with the couple in the ceremony and this, that, and the other. And the night goes off without a hitch. And I can tear down, I can load out, I can leave and say, that was my thing. I had a hand in that. That was me. I'm the
Right.
only one responsible for that. You've made it. You've envisioned what the product is supposed to look like. You've literally blood and sweat, maybe more just sweat and tears. If you're bleeding in the kitchen,
Yeah.
that's a problem. And you get the gist of it, right? So you've done this thing and you've produced. Yours is a little different. You've got a tangible product. Mine is, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
dealing in experiences, and really I'm a time dealer, right? So I'm dealing in people's
Yeah.
time and their but with you and what you do with the product that you put out, that's what's important about this. And so I'm so thankful to talk to people like you who actually do care about the whole process. And girl, I don't blame you for wanting to just do the decorating. I mean, I get it.
Right.
But
Yeah. I mean, if I could hire somebody to do my dishes,
yes, that would
that
be
would be
amazing.
great.
Yes. Or you
Love
just
it.
do like us guys and soak them and let it be. You've already mentioned a lot of people that you've looked up to and kind of model
Yeah.
how you do things after. And of course, we know COVID has really brought a lot of people trying their hand at baking. We talked about the sourdough starters, right? But if you really had to just kind of focus on three people that you feel have been most influential to you in the world of baking, where would you start? What names would you direct me to say, look at these people? This is kind of where I get my motivation from.
I said before, I watched a lot of TV growing up, and Duff was my idol. We went to Baltimore on a vacation and we like drove by the building and I like hung my entire body out of the window like the bakery.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. We can't go inside, but I have pictures. But yeah, like he's a big one that like inspired me. I was like, oh, that's what I want to do with my life
Yeah.
is what he's doing right now. And then I would say like more recently, like I said, I follow a lot of people on Instagram, bakers and decorators of cakes and cookies and everything. And I follow King Arthur Flour on Instagram.
Okay.
I've used them at other bakeries before. I love their products. And Erin McDowell bakes for them, and she's a big pie baker. And like I said, pie is one of those things that I'm like, it's like I love struggling to figure out how to do it right.
Absolutely.
So I got her cookbook for her pie cookbook for Christmas, and I'm so excited. Like her pies are so beautiful.
Yeah.
Like she's one of those people that is thinking outside of the box on how to make and present those things and make them special. So I really like her. And then kind of in the same vein, Sister Pie in Detroit is a bakery that I started following on Instagram a while ago that I'm just obsessed with the flavor combinations that they have and the stuff that they're doing. And like I've worked in smaller bakeries like that and kind of knowing the hustle that they have to do to keep themselves going. And like I remember going in there, it was like a weekday afternoon and it was like this big experience for me, like a mecca sort of a thing.
Sure.
And I remember going in and just like having like a normal interaction with people and just like having this sort of like the whole time under my like inside of me because I was just so happy. And I got like
fangirling
pistachio rosewater shortbread and it was so delicious. And just I really like the stuff they do. And then the Haley cakes on Instagram, she's in Texas, she's in Houston, her stuff is amazing. Like she's one of those people that is inspiring because she doesn't take anything seriously. She and her bakers have so much fun doing the stuff they do. They kind of get into these like modes where like everything is a mermaid or everything is a unicorn or so like it's really fun to just watch kind of almost what she gets away with sometimes in a good way. Like I'm impressed that she has the guts to do some of the things that she does because I feel like a lot of people, and especially in a business, you have to be so careful not to offend people. You have to be so careful to make sure that you're making people happy. And she's just like, this is fun, this is what we're doing, here you go. And I think people really appreciate her for that.
That's a big deal, and I'm glad that I'm glad you said that because yeah, for sure, everything that we do, people like you and me that have chosen to do service related things that involve basically being order takers. You tell me what you need me to do, I'm going to deliver it at this date and time at this place.
Yep.
So that's really cool. I'm just so thankful for people like you who really care about what you're doing. And again, I can't gush enough, my friend, about I truly like there's a reason that and there's a list of folks. It's a very short list on my website of people that I would recommend to anyone because I know that they wouldn't put a client in a position. They would definitely do golden rule the whole thing, right? Do unto others, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So that list is very short of people because it's about quality every single time, no exceptions, no excuses.
Yeah.
So
you gotta be picky with who you're throwing your name in with too,
because the worst thing you can do is refer a friend sometime.
I know. Yeah. I just met with a florist on Thursday for this exact reason because she was like, we're always getting questions about who we can recommend.
Who can we send?
I want to know people that I'm recommending. I don't just want to recommend a random person that I have no experience working with,
So that's absolutely all wonderful stuff. I am thrilled that you've had such a great success in getting back to it. There is one more thing I want to touch on because I know you and I have an unhealthy obsession for a television show which ran on NBC for 9 seasons called The Office.
What could it be?
Yes, it is The Office. And before
I was just listening to the Office Ladies podcast like an hour ago.
What? I knew you would listen to
I
Office
listen to
Ladies.
it religiously. It's like my thing every week on Wednesday.
I I
I was
actually
late this
had to
week.
catch up because we had some other stuff going on. I kid you not. It is definitely on my it's definitely on my you can't see it there, but you get it. Yeah. It's on my list
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. I definitely listen to the Office Ladies. So much so, and I'm going to have to describe what I'm showing you right now. I did send you a couple pictures we'll talk about, but for sure. So
Oh
my
my
wife
god.
bought this. She saw this at Target, and so she
Yeah,
bought me
I
this.
saw that online and I
Yeah,
was like, I
she bought me
need
this is
it.
the Office Lego set. It's not really Legos, it's like an off-brand kind of Lego deal, but
It's an off-brand, but
you've got
it's the
Jim
same
and
difference.
Dwight, you've got Michael, his office. I mean, it's pretty much the front end of
So
the
jealous.
bullpen of the office. And then I believe this was in the same conversation, but she bought me these. I'm not really into the Funko Pops, but she bought me a Michael Scott Funko Pop. And
Oh, he's so
then
perfect though.
he is so perfect. This is my favorite. This is the Jim Halpert Golden Face
Oh
Funko Pop.
I didn't know that existed.
So,
I need it.
yes, I apparently am going to need to buy every single one of these. Now, the pictures I sent you
Are amazing. Oh
my
my
so
god.
I turned 40 this year in the midst of a pandemic, and Rosanna
Of course.
surprised me with, and that video is going to give you a better idea. But
This cake is
the
incredible.
picture that I sent Kara is I sent her a picture, and then it's a video of a Dunder Mifflin cake. We found a local cake maker here in the I want to say it's in Howell, and they made the Dunder Mifflin cake. Most of it is fondant, which I ate some of the pieces. I think she saved the post-it notes and then the picture applications on the
Oh, I'm
outside of
jealous.
it.
The Post-its are perfect. Did I stutter?
The did I stutter? Yes, because I'll help you find it. Yeah, so yeah, it is your birthday, of course. So I was super. Please add that to
Yeah.
your repertoire, something like that.
I need to.
Um,
I actually just got a message about a weird thing. I do cross stitch. I
love it.
sell cross stitch pieces on Etsy, and I have a Dwight Schrute one that says, "You can't fire me. I don't work in this van." And it has a van. And somebody messaged me about the pattern today. But yeah, I need to do some office cakes because that's one I haven't.
Well,
I haven't
get
had a
in,
chance to
get
do
in,
yet.
and yeah, definitely. I think even even the what was the sheet cake that they had for when they did the oh shoot, they did that reward system, and they said, "All right, so we're gonna assign everybody a random number," and Jim ends up winning. It's a picture of Jim's face on the sheet cake. I think that would be amazing too. When remember when they did that reward
Yeah.
system, and Dwight was trying to get him fired, and so yeah.
Yes.
Um,
I really like Kelly's birthday cake when they put a chiclet in the middle of a cake and it was a
do you know
TV
how
or a
easy?
pillow.
I mean, so much.
I know.
Charge triple for it. If
Well,
people, it's a
so I don't
pillow.
know if you know this, but Lindsay threw me an
Yes, I
office
do. The
themed baby
office baby
shower at the
shower. Yeah.
brewery. Yes. And my favorite part was that she printed out life-size faces of all the people and they cut the eyes out. So we had like
Be
masks
still my heart.
and we played a game with them. I still have all of them in
Wonderful.
my
Well, rapid fire.
yeah.
Let's hit on some office things that I must know about you. What is your favorite "That's what she said" moment?
Probably it squeaks when you bang it. My husband and I were discussing this last night, and he also really loves because he was like, "Is it red and swollen?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" When they go to the doctor for Dwight's concussion, and it's not so much that that's what she said; it's the face that
Yes.
that doctor makes when he's
Yes.
laughing. He's like,
Yeah.
So good.
My favorite
So good.
is I want to say it's season 2 maybe, or it's right when Jan comes with the HR folks and the attorney, and
That's my other favorite one that I
Jim
was
is
gonna
egging him on. He
say.
goes, "Well, you always left me
Yes.
satisfied." That's what she said. You know the whole thing. Who's your favorite office character?
Pretty sure it's Pam. I
Yeah.
love Pam.
Yeah.
Well, and disclaimer, seasons 1 through 4 are my favorite.
They
Like, I
fell
will
off
watch it
after
all the
that.
way through.
They fell off after
But
that.
I will stop. So my husband and I have this argument when we watch it because I want to stop at the end of season 4, and he's like, "But the wedding." So then we watch season 5, and then we end up watching the whole thing. But like early Pam, especially, or like Michael Scott Paper Company Pam, I love too. I also think I love her because she reminds me so much of one of my best friends. Like when she says things, I hear Katie. Like my husband and I both do that. Where Pam will say something, and we're like, "Katie." Like, it sounds exactly like how she would say it. It's especially like the little kind of, not the snide remarks, because she's not snide, but like when Michael does something crazy and she's like, please don't throw things at me. Like, that's, I just hear Katie every
Especially,
time. So
what was it the other day? It was so funny because I listened to their podcast, and then the episode came on. It was the
I haven't finished the most recent one yet.
season 4. Yeah, it's like season 401
Yeah,
or
we're in
402,
season 4,
where
which is my favorite season.
Meredith, he hits Meredith with the car. And so the reason I was able to be there so quickly is because I was in the car that hit her. And I think it's amazing because Pam looks at him, and because it's silent, right? It's that moment she goes, "Oh, Michael."
I know, I can hear her saying, "Oh my God."
My favorite character, Jim is the man. I actually think Creed.
I love Jim.
I like Jim, but I like Creed.
My husband's favorite is Creed.
I like Creed
because
because
he thinks he's so funny.
he has a backstory that I don't think you want to go down that road,
Yes.
especially when during the murder mystery, when there's been a murder. And he goes, "Oh, you're just in time." And Creed's like, "Boss, I got to go take care of cars." He just takes off and he's out of there. Yes! He hops in that car and gets out of there. Who was your least favorite character on the show? Who did you just not stand?
I feel very strongly about this. Yeah. I do not like Charles.
Oh, I hated Charles Minor. I did.
Because Charles hates Jim. You can't hate Jim. How dare you, sir?
Especially Tuxedo.
It's not okay.
Especially Tuxedo.
I know. That's why I don't like watching season 5. It's painful.
I know.
It's painful.
And I will say that I actually really didn't like the Will Ferrell arc at all. I just did not like D'Angelo Vickers. Who do you relate to the most? I know you said Pam was your favorite, but who do you relate to on the show the most?
I feel like, okay, so I was thinking about this earlier, and I don't know that I've ever related to Stanley more than when I was 7 months pregnant and working, because I was just like, I'm going to sit my fat butt down and watch all of you work. I'll be over here eating if you need anything. I'm not paying attention in meetings because I'm almost done working.
Of course.
I might take a nap on my desk later.
Yeah.
You know.
I would feel like that sometimes. I think for me, and I know you're going to probably have to agree with this, I think I relate most to Andy Bernard.
You for sure do.
Except for the propensity to be a loser, like Andy kind of gave up toward the end there. Finally, last one, your top 3 favorite episodes ever. If you want to rank them, you can.
I won't rank them all, but I can tell you my number 1 favorite episode is and always has been Goodbye Toby.
Oh, Goodbye Toby.
No, Goodbye Toby. I don't know. I just love that episode. And then like Jim is going to propose and then Andy wrecks it. And I just, there's just so much going on in that episode. I also love Fun Run.
Oh yeah, of course.
And I also love Beach Day. That's a really good one.
Mm-hmm. Mine would be in no particular order. Michael Says Goodbye, the airport thing.
Yes.
When Pam goes and finally, so his last episode, the Michael Scott Paper Company episode when they sell the company back to Dunder Mifflin. And he does the
episode.
legendary.
That was on my list of tops.
Our balls are in your court line, of course. The other one, the moment where Charles comes back out and tries to talk to the bullpen, and Michael's like, "Nope." And then you're like,
I love it, but it makes me so like.
Oh yeah, it's a cringy moment. And then of course, I already mentioned Murder Mystery, which for me showed a crazy side of how Michael. He doesn't do conflict well, but when he does focus, it's that conversation he has with Jim where he says, just let me have this one freaking thing where I can just let me have this. We don't know. Just let me, let me rally the troops. And then there's going to be a murder in a Savannah. And that, I do declare. You don't have to say I declare every time you say something, Michael. We know you're declaring it. Thank you so much for letting me do this with you. Thank you for chatting with me about what you're doing. I'm so happy.
For inviting me.
Of course, absolutely. People can find you on your Facebook page, right? Kara Zummer Baking on Facebook. Is there any other, your social medias, anything else you can tell us about where to find you?
Pretty much just Facebook. I do have an Instagram page, but I don't really post my baking stuff on it. It's more cross-stitch stuff, and then my stories, I'm usually posting pictures of my daughter. So if you want to,
well, absolutely, we do. Kara Zummer, everybody, thank you so much for joining me, friend.
Thank you. It was wonderful. I'm so glad we finally got a chance to chat.